When I was growing up, every little boy wanted to be President of the United States of America. It was a common aspiration, but I'm not sure it was a particularly noble one. I think that very few of those little boys wanted what they wanted because of a deep need to serve their fellow man. Mostly, I think it was because in my day, we had witnessed Presidents Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon, and we saw the presidency as a seat of absolute power and dominion over the head of the most powerful nation in the world. And that notion was not condemned. In fact, the world around us encouraged us in our thinking. It was considered good to strive for a position of complete power, to be on top of the heap. And positions of service were sort of considered something to be settled for, at best. Perhaps that's one of the reasons for the decay of this nation. So many of us were encouraged to grab for money and power and control instead of love and service. I guess it really shouldn't surprise us either that the whole idea of king is misunderstood and misinterpreted by human beings. I'm not sure if we've ever understood the appropriate definition of king or ruler. The people of the Old Testament sure didn't get it. A king was supposed to be the father of the people. Someone completely sacrificial and loving and serving his people. And yet, the people of Israel persistently whined for a king until God gave them Saul. It seemed they didn't understand that they'd had a king already. Who do they think called Abraham out of Haran, or led the people of Egypt, led the people of Israel out of Egypt? Or who protected them during the famine in Israel and took them to Egypt in the first place? God had always been their king. But people are blinded by human ambition. And since everyone else has an earthly king, they had to have one too. It didn't work out so well for them. All you have to do is read through the book of 2 Kings to realize just how poorly things went. The people of Israel, however, consoled themselves with the day that the King of Kings would come, the Messiah. Then they would have the king that they'd always wanted and always needed. Then they would have someone to overthrow the Babylonians and the Egyptians and later the Romans and make Israel a truly great nation again. He would be holy and righteous and just, ruling rightly in all aspects. And sadly, they had missed the whole point of the Messiah as well. He was never promised to be a political leader or a military leader. He was a godly king, the Messiah, the one who rules not by might, but by service and love. And the Sanhedrin were very threatened by Christ because they saw that he was this different sort of king. See, the problem with a king who does not rule by money and power is that he also cannot be manipulated by money and power. This was a king who came to serve and to love his people. And the Sanhedrin were not dummies. They could see the writing on the wall. This kind of king, ruling with love and with grace instead of power and control, would quickly and quietly overthrow their whole system of government, that which buttered their bread. So, the whole assembly formed a quick kangaroo court and marched him off to Pilate to get the okay to kill Jesus. Now, the last thing they wanted here was a trial by Pilate. All they wanted was the official authority to impose the death penalty, which they had to have from Pilate. However, Pilate, the heathen Gentile, was not quite ready to so quickly do their bidding. He wanted first to ask a few pointed questions. So Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Yes, it is as you say," Jesus replied. "But my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. But my kingdom is from another place." Well, this left Pilate thoroughly confused. What possible reason was there to kill this man who only claimed to be king of another world? Jesus did not seem very threatening to him. As a matter of fact, it seemed that all Jesus wanted to do was love and serve his people. Of course, that's exactly why the Pharisees and the scribes wanted him dead. But Pilate thought it was enough to have him flogged. That would pacify them, and then he wouldn't have to sentence an innocent man to death. And yet, all they heard from the priests and the scribes and their minions was crucify him. Crucify him. So, in the prayer of the day today, we ask God to grant that we may always follow Christ's example. The example he left for us was one of love and service. Yet that is not what the people want. Are we so different? How do we judge the merit of a president or a congressman or a senator? Do we judge him by the kind of love and service he inspires? Or do we judge him by the amount of money he can save us on our tax bill and how many goods and services he offers us? And some people might cry foul here because this is the church and that's the government and never the twain shall meet. But I never heard Jesus make that distinction. In fact, this whole business of behaving one way in church and another way in the world is an artificial distinction that we have made to soothe our own consciences. Jesus never said, serve with love in the church, but grab all you can get in the world. He said, in all aspects, life is about love and service to one another. Look how we measure ourselves. By how much money we make, how much power we have. If that's the criteria, then there are some crack dealers over on Western that are a whole lot more important than any of us. Or maybe it's how we look. That's why plastic surgery centers and health spas are a billion-dollar business. Or perhaps we measure ourselves by the positive strokes that we get from others. If we have enough people telling us how wonderful we are, then we're okay. But if no one affirms us, well, then there must be something wrong with us and we're miserable. How does God measure us? What criteria does he use to determine how well we are living as the children of the one true King? He examines the level of love we offer to those around us. He takes stock of the sacrificial service we offer to others. He sees how we handle opportunities to share his love. But the problem is, see, none of that has any value in the world. So we find ourselves being tempted to just accept the world's definition of king. In the long run, it's just easier. So how will you define yourselves? Will you use the Lord's example? Will you receive his word and his sacrament to keep you strong so that love and service can dominate your life? Or will you walk away from God's word and sacrament and slowly sink into the world's example, the world's expectation? These are the questions that we face every day of our lives. And only by the power of God's word and sacrament Is our faith kept strong enough to follow Jesus' example? And we keep our faith strong by being here each week, by hearing His word, remembering our baptisms, receiving His body and blood so that we are able to follow His example Monday through Saturday. Only then are we set free from the world's ideas of success and happiness. Only by following Him will we ever know what it is to have a real king and to be princes and princesses in His kingdom.